Thank you all for joining us today. I am here with Monique Derouen. Thank you for joining us today. How has your mental health journey been?
Oh, it has been quite the journey to say the least. I've gone from some very serious issues in my life to feeling very stable and secure now. So lots of mess in between that I hope that I can share with your listeners and they'll get something out of.
That's why you're here today, darling. It's because frankly, even though any one of us that looks very put together may appear so, we have all had our chaos, our tribulations that were generally behind closed doors. They were messy as hell. And that is why we have the grace and decorum that we have today in the world.
Absolutely.
What is one of the things that helped you really, in the thick of it, go from continuing the cycle and the struggle to actually beginning to heal and overcome things?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's a series of different moments in my life that continued to push me into the trajectory that I am now, but there's a few key moments that I can really touch on. One was I hired a mentor who had been through some really similar things that I had been through, who had a lot of the same story and got me without judgment. Didn't judge my story, didn't judge who I was, where I came from, where I wanted to go. And I think that was a big part of my healing was just to have a safe space to practice becoming who I am now.
I'm glad that you bring that up because that is a huge part of the process. Whether therapy, coaching, mentorship, it's that safe space to not only unpack who you were and the struggles that you're facing, but that space to really shift into who you're becoming or the best version of yourself, however you want to look at it. And people don't realize like that is a big part of the healing process is the shifting into the new after reprocessing things.
Yeah,
And frankly, whether you use therapy or coaching or any other modality in between, it doesn't matter. Well, yes, they may have varying degrees of education or experience in said topics, but what works for you is what works for you.
I agree.
What are some of your favorite tools or practices that help you not just through the process, but in your day to day life today?
Yeah. I have a great story of a moment several years ago that I was just in a total nervous dysregulation. My nervous system was just shot. I was trembling. It was hard to function. The thoughts were kind of everywhere. And I remember learning this technique where I just took 4 breaths, inhale, exhale. And I said the words, I am here now with each inhale and exhale. And we tried that for a few minutes. And as I began to use that mantra and that breath work together, I noticed that the pressure in my head began to slow down and the pressure in my heart began to soften. The belly softened. And it's almost like it took me into a total grounding experience. And to this day, I use it every single day. I teach it to all my clients. And it is a beautiful and simple way to get back into the body and out of those intrusive, rapid firing thoughts that so often pull us in the direction we don't want to be in.
I love how you phrased that because grounding, by whether it's breath work and a mantra, or breath work, or just using a combination of your senses to get back into your body and really be in that present moment. There are thousands of options and different combinations, and people don't realize that grounding is actually the first step to any work. It's the first step before feeling safe with yourself or your professional. Like, it comes much further before any of the real work in healing.
Yeah. So often I found myself just trying to change, just do something different, bypass it, ignore it, just on to the next thing. And for a long time that worked, but it was a survival mechanism. And what happened is that my body got used to escaping and running, using anything I could, food, drugs, alcohol, Netflix, TikTok, right? Just anything I could to distract, where now I'm able to just really pause and drop in. And like you said, there's thousands of ways to do this. We can go put our feet in the grass. We can do stretches. We can do yoga. We can any time of journaling, breath work, all that stuff is fantastic, right? Tapping, all of these things bring us to the same place. But for me, that simple mantra and just breathing, I can access it anywhere in the world, whether I'm driving the car, whether I'm in Target, whether I'm dealing with my husband who's getting on my nerves, or my kids are having drama. It really is something that no one even knows I'm doing. Super simple. And like I said, for me, it's always worked wonders. So
Right? And you perfectly said it. Spouses require breathwork activities.
yes.
We love them, but they do get on our nerves.
Yeah. And that's okay.
Right? And honestly, it's going to happen with every relationship in our lives. It can be your best friend that you can talk to for hours every day. There are going to be days where you are just not in the mood for it.
Right.
But you still resisted the urge and answered the phone. Well, you decided to answer the phone. Now, what do you need to not be rude? Well, maybe that's breath work. Maybe that's just repeating the mantra in your head or whatever. Like, there are so many options, and especially in a world where we are constantly bombarded with information and stimulus, and unfortunately, Karens, like, you're constantly going to have to deal with people and situations that you don't like, even if they're not traumatic. Even myself, like, as you mentioned, you used everything that you could think of under the sun to escape. We all do it, whether it's drugs, alcohol, Netflix, food. It could even just be work. Being a workaholic, being that busy all the time with no actual time to be present for yourself, in that situation, you're running. And it looks like really successful running, but you're still hiding from something.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's why I'm generally more concerned about our high performers, because they hide it so well that nobody in their life can tell that they're suffering.
Yeah. And that was me for a long time, right? I am going to white knuckle and teeth grit and drive hard and get through it. And then I ended up in the hospital with adrenal fatigue because I had actually exhausted my entire body from overthinking, overfeeling, overprocessing, and not taking action that was aligned with self-care. I took care of everybody else. I did everything else, and it was great. And to the outside world, they would have never known that anything was wrong. But I was on 9 medications daily. This was in my early 30s, right? And I remember just not being able to move one day. And I went to the hospital and they said, your adrenals are literally shot. And they put me in the hospital that day, and I remember him just saying, you've got to stop stressing. You've got to stop the stress. But nobody gave me the formula to stop the stress.
Exactly. It's lower your stress levels, focus on happiness. Well, how? It's only now that they're beginning to teach these things to kids in school. And like, I'm thankful that they're beginning to use mindfulness exercises and so that these are more ingrained in our children before that they're adults. But even myself, even when I was paralyzed, I went to school, I worked full time, and I I slept for maybe 18 hours every 3 weeks because my body would like basically collapse into just sleep. Would one night every 3 weeks, it would be 18 hours, and then the rest of the time it was go go go. That's not healthy. And I'm very thankful for the 8 hours of sleep I get a night now, but that took years of unlearning and really reprogramming my entire nervous system to not be in a stressed state, even on a day that is busy and stressful.
Right. And I think you hit it on the head when you just said that, because the body creates a pattern around whatever it is that we're doing, right? And that pattern then becomes habit. And then we have to break the habit and pattern and behavior in order to change the neurology in the nervous system, which you've done. So, congratulations, because that's a big deal.
Right? Well, then, through my own work in high risk social work and my training as an Indigenous medicine woman in my own practice, I take a very holistic and gentle way. Even though the practices are often very high impact, it's let's do this with the way your body works and how you should be living your life. I don't want to sit here and re traumatize you and make you just afraid like the day whatever happened. I want you to reprocess it so that you leave this session with, wow, I can breathe again, not knowing that your chest had felt tight for years. Like it's making the magic happen so that all of our clients don't just feel like they're even more stressed trying to heal from everything than they were going through it. And that's often how my experiences looked in my own mental health journey, where everything felt like a constant struggle, where, you'd feel great after the session, but then the next day, it was same shit, different day.
Right. And that's one of the things that I've learned over the years is that anything worth doing is worth doing every single day. My mentor taught me that. And so information and knowledge is fantastic. It's great. But reading a book doesn't teach you how to change your body, right? And so practicing moments every single day, integrating what you're understanding, beginning to embody it on a cellular level, then changes the nervous system, then changes the body. And then we get that different outcome or result. But so many of us just take in the knowledge and geek out on the information and have it all here, then don't really know what to do with it.
Exactly. Like that there are probably millions of self-help books in the world. And you can have all that information, but if you don't know how to implement it and create the habits that create change, then you're just a very successful bookworm with a great memory. And well, yes, that's an accomplishment that doesn't help us fix our lives.
Right.
Now that you've healed, like, what are you doing with life?
Yeah. Living, thriving, not surviving, just connecting with people, being social, changing generational patterns in my family, not to recreate some of those things that I experienced or my parents experienced in their lives before, and um, traveling, enjoying life, not being in pain, not isolating, not hiding. So long I just would stay home and be in my little cocoon where it was safe. And there was this part of me that really wanted to be out in the world and really wanted to have connections. But I didn't even know how to begin to live that. And it started with just a couple friends, and we would go to yoga or we would go to brunch or going out places. And in 2018, I moved up to Colorado and I didn't know a single person here. Moved from Louisiana to Colorado. So big stretch, totally different environment, everything here. And just came up with my husband in a camper and traveled for a while. And I didn't know a soul. And so I knew I had to get out in the community, right? I knew I had to meet people because I wanted to be connected. And it was very scary and it was very uneasy to my body because I was social for a long time. And then these imprints with the trauma really shifted the way I did life. It was really hard to trust people. It was really hard to make connections. And again, that isolation where I was using drugs, using alcohol, whatever I could to stay cocooned. Like now you've taken away all my friends. Like I have no distraction, right? To be in public. I'm not holding a glass of wine anymore. I've actually got to talk to somebody. I mean, that'll really hike up your
Mhm.
nervous system again, right? But again, I use these little tools that my mentor had taught me, like I am here now, the couple breaths. And I was able to just be genuine with people. And I realized that there's a lot of people in the world that are actually kind and genuine, but I had not seen that. And so it was hard to believe or trust, you know? And yeah, so now I travel. I work with clients all over the country. I have clients all over the world. I don't travel to those guys yet, but maybe someday. Um, but I just want to help people live a better life.
That sounds so serene. It sounds like you've come out of the other side of your trauma with this life that you actually really get to enjoy living. And ultimately, like that's the big goal. And I love how you bring up that how moving forced you to change even further. Because I myself, I don't intentionally move as often as I have in my life, but I have bounced around a few cities. And moving to another city, or and potentially even another province or state, really forces you to hone in to the exact lifestyle you want and forces you to go and do that with random strangers until you find people that you click with. And no one ever talks about the level of vulnerability it takes to make friends like that as an adult. This is, oh, these people know nothing about me. You can choose to skip parts of the story. You can just be your full authentic self. There's a lot to navigate in that sphere.
Yeah, agreed. And I've skipped around a little bit in life, right? So I had a really traumatizing divorce when I was very young. I had two toddlers and I moved from Louisiana to Austin, and stayed in Austin for a while until he moved out of state again. And I was able to come back home and feel really safe in Louisiana. And I remember moving to Austin and I would bring my kids to my mom for a few days at a time. And I would go back and I would just work as much as I could. But one of the things that I established there was taking myself on dates. So I would take myself out to dinner one night while the kids were not there, or I would go dancing one night, or I would go to a movie. And just like you said, I started doing the things that I loved, going to the lake, going to the yoga classes. And I was able to establish a little bit of a tribe, a little bit of a community that liked these similar things. But it was very scary because, again, coming out of a very traumatic space,
Mhm.
not really knowing where to turn or what to do, I just I just kept tapping into myself and saying, what feels right to you? What do you want to do? What do you want to do today? and I would just go try the thing. And sometimes it was fun and sometimes it was disaster. But the thing was that I always felt the need to keep going because I had this belief that there had to be more than what I was doing. I knew there had to be something better, and I just hadn't seen it yet, you know?
Right? And I'm really glad that you had that conviction inside you, too, that there's more. Because that was probably your mindset focus that got you ultimately to where you are now, even on your hard days.
Yeah.
Because like you're like me. I'm very okay, I'll see you at the finish line. Whatever it is, however long it takes, I'll be there. But a lot of people aren't like that. A
Yeah.
lot of people don't have that level of conviction, self-confidence, even just their own security in their own being to say, I want more and I'll find it, or this needs to change and I can actually make it happen.
And I think that's because so many of us have been taught to be happy with what you have, don't want too much, don't get too big for your britches, don't be greedy, and so we've been confined to this little box and taught to behave and speak and act a certain way. And so to dream, to look outside of that is really hard because that conditioning has kind of kept us boxed in and said, this is how it's supposed to be. Follow the rules and you'll be fine. And now we're seeing that's not actually how it is, especially generational stuff. I mean, I can get into the weeds with that, because I'm a little bit older. I have kids in their 20s and my parents were boomers, right? So there's this strange way of living that each generation has gone through. And the way they thought and the way they taught us might have been correct for them, but it wasn't correct for me. And it surely wasn't correct for my kids. And so just really being able to step back and say, what if we've been misinformed? Just what if? Just consider that maybe things aren't correct for me that might be correct for somebody else. And one of the things that really made me see this is that I thought, I've never been to Japan. I've never stayed at every hotel in Italy. I don't know what it's like to be in Guam, right? So, like, how would I know what's out there? How would I know what's available?
Right? Well, and that is one thing I love. Because as a millennial that was primarily raised by boomers, I can see both how boomers tried to raise me, and the entire time I was kicking and screaming, nope, this isn't it. This is not it. And then, by the time I was 19, I dropped out of college. I wrote my first book. I went and I finished my training. And here we are today, working on books 3 and 4, seeing all of my group and my private clients. And I live a much different lifestyle than all of my family.
Yeah. Same.
And it's just because I'm choosing peace and a lifestyle full of happiness over a lifestyle full of possessions that I can walk 2 people through my house every year and go, here's the story behind this thing. No, my home is not a museum. My home is where I sleep. I think between your generation and mine, we have got to the points where we realize that life is actually about living, and we need to cherish every moment instead of just hoping that we have enough money to retire.
Yeah.
Because if you kill your body and your mind during those years where you were working, what kind of retirement do you have?
I can't even imagine a life where I would be retired from doing this. It's so fulfilling. It's so energizing, right? Help people on that level and then watch them go out in the world and trickle this out and kind of have that ripple effect in their lives and their businesses. I don't know that I'll ever not do what I do right now. I've done a lot of work over my years, career wise, and um, helping people self heal is by far the most beneficial job that I have ever done on any level.
I have to agree with you. Out of everything I've done professionally, I will probably work very close to my death. Even if it's just like on a part time basis in the later years, I truly have no intention of stopping working, but that's also because the lifestyle is different. Like, I work a little less now so that I can work a little longer later.
Right. And how much more freedom do you have?
So much more freedom.
Right.
I I can work anywhere, I can see clients wherever as long as I have Wi-Fi or a hotspot.
Yeah.
And as you stated, it's the seeing people heal, the helping them through their darkest moments and watching them become their best selves. And that ripple, that ripple is what creates that change that maybe one day we will be Karen free.
Maybe so.
We can hope. Where can our listeners find you?
Yeah. I'm on all social media, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, no matter how old you are, what generation you go with, Snapchat, Threads, all the things. Monique the Mind Body Coach is the easiest way to find me. Also in Google, you can just put Monique the Mind Body Coach and I should pop up.
Thank you so much. And,
Welcome.
and thank you for joining me here today. This has been a really great discussion, and I hope that our listeners find a lot of value and inspiration in it.
Yeah. Just remember to pause and ground as much as you can anytime you can. That's all I got to tell him. Just that one thing. Be here now. There's nowhere else to be.